but passing through one of the most significant maritime routes in human history. Let me make you a journey through the time. Prehistoric and mythological times starts in thousands of years ago. Our story begins long before the rise of empires. Archaeological evidence suggests that human settlements around the Dardanelles date back to the Neolithical period, over 7,000 years ago. Due to its strategic location, this region has always attracted settlers, traders, and invaders. In mythology, this strait was known as the Hellespont. According to Greek legend, it was named after Helle, a girl who fell into the waters here while flying on a golden run. The myth of Hero and Leander, a tragic love between a prettiest and her lover who swam across the strait each night, also unfold here. In the 5th century BCE, Persian King Xerxes I famously crossed the Dardanelles with his massive army using a bridge of boats during his navigation of Greece, an ambitious engineering feat for this time. Later in 334 BCE, Alexander the Great crossed the strait in the opposite direction, setting off on his conquest of the Persian Empire. Both events mark the Dardanelles as the bridge between Europe and Asia, East and West. So as we are entering the strait, the Asian side will be on your right and European side will be on your left. Dardanelles remained a critical waterway for trade and military movement, linking the Mediterranean to the heart of Constantinople. The Dardanelles came under Ottoman control in the 14th century, and the empire recognized its strategic importance immediately. The Ottomans built fortresses on both shores to control passage and defend against naval invasions. Through Ottoman history, the strait played a key role in wars, diplomacy, and the economy. It was seen as the key to controlling access to the Bosporus and Black Sea. Perhaps the most dramatic chapter in the Dardanelles' modern history came during the World War I in the Gallipoli campaign of 1915-1916. Allied forces, primarily British, French, Australian and New Zealand troops, or ANZA, attempt to seize the strait and open supply routes to Russia. The campaign turned into a bloody and prolonged battle against the determined Ottoman defense, led in part by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, who would later become the founder of modern Turkey. The campaign was a failure for the Allies, but marked a defining moment in Turkish national identity. Today, the Gallipoli Peninsula is a site of remembrance, with numerous cemeteries and memorials honoring those who fought and died here. The Dardanelles is approximately 61 kilometers or 38 miles long and narrows to just 1.2 kilometers or 0.75 miles at its tightest point. It connects the Aegean Sea to the Sea of Marmara, which then links to the Bosporus Strait and eventually the Black Sea. On both shores, you'll find rigged hills, pine forests, and olive groves. The waters are deep and fast-flowing, with strong surface currents running from the Sea of Marmara to the Aegean Sea. Marine life here includes dolphins, sea turtles, and a variety of fish, some of which are key to local cuisine. Migratory birds used the Dardanelles as the flight path between Europe and Africa, making it a popular spot for bird watching in spring and autumn. The strait was left its mark on art, literature, and film. The myth of Hero and Leander inspired work by Lord Byron, who famously swam across the strait himself in 1810. The Gallipoli campaign has been immortalized in books, poems, and films. Perhaps the most famous one is in 1981 movie Gallipoli, starring Mel Gibson. The events continue to shape Australian and New Zealand national identity, commemorated annually on Anzac Day in April 25. The Dardanelles was once known as the Gate of Asia due to its geographic importance. The name comes from Dardania, an ancient city said to be found by Dardanus, a son of Zeus. During the Cold War, control over the Dardanelles was a constant geopolitical concern between NATO and the Soviet Union. Lord Byron's successful swim across the Dardanelles is still celebrated by adventurous swimmers today. There is even an annual swim event. In Turkish, the strait is called Çanakkale Boğazı, named after the nearby city of Çanakkale. As we sail into Dardanelles, on 11 o'clock direction, on our left side, port side, looking in front, you will see the Çanakkale Martyrs Monument. It is a massive concrete structure on the left side, on the European side of the entrance. The Çanakkale Martyrs Monument stands as one of Turkey's most iconic memorials, a solemn tribute to the soldiers who lost their lives during the Gallipoli campaign in 1915-1916 in World War I, located on the Gallipoli Peninsula near the village of Morto Bay. The monument is not just a war memorial, it is a deeply significant cultural landmark that embodies Turkish identity, resilience, and remembrance. The Gallipoli campaign was one of the bloodiest and most strategically crucial battles of World War I. Allied forces, including British, French, Australian, and New Zealand troops, attempted to seize the Dardanelles Strait to secure a supply route to Russia. Facing fierce resistance from the Ottoman army, the campaign resulted in a massive loss of life on both sides, over 250,000 Ottoman casualties alone. In the aftermath of the war, the need to commemorate the sacrifice of Ottoman soldiers became a national priority. The concept of a grand monument to honor the fallen gained traction in the early Republic era, and a design competition was launched in 1944. The winning design envisioned a monumental structure that would reflect the scale of the sacrifice. Construction of the monument began in 1954 and was completed in 1960. It was officially inaugurated on August 21, 1960 with a large public ceremony. Once again, right now I'm talking about Çanakkale Martyrs Monument, which is on 10 o'clock direction at the moment. It is standing on 41.7 meters tall and consists of 4 massive square columns supporting a concrete slab roof, forming a monumental archway visible from miles away, both from land and sea. The design symbolizes the gateway to eternity, is said to represent the steadfastness and unity of the Turkish people. Beneath the monument lies a museum and symbolic cemetery, and along with the inscribed walls listing of the names of the soldiers who perished in the campaign. Nearby, the respect of Mehmetçik Memorial and the 57th Infantry Regiment Memorial provide further context and honor specific unit and individuals. As we are approaching Çanakkale Martyrs Monument on our port side, let me tell you a few words about Ottoman fortifications in the Dardanelles and their role in the defense. The Dardanelles Strait, a narrow but strategically vital waterway connecting the Aegean Sea to the Sea of Marmara, has been one of the most consistent maritime routes in history. For centuries, the Ottoman Empire recognized the geopolitical and military importance of this corridor and invested significantly in its fortification. From medieval stone bastion to modern artillery emplacement during the First World War, the Ottoman defense system along the Dardanelles evolved to meet the demands of changing warfare. The Dardanelles was always served as the maritime key between Europe and Asia, and between the Mediterranean and Black Sea. Control of this strait means control of naval access to Istanbul, formerly known as Constantinople, and by extension, the heart of the Ottoman Empire. This strategic position made it imperative for the Ottomans to develop a robust coastal defense system. The Ottomans began fortifying the Dardanelles in 15th century, soon after their conquest of Constantinople in 1453. The most significant efforts were made in 1452 by Mehmet II, or Mehmet the Conqueror, and then he created the Sibuh Bahmir Castle on the Asian side. These two stone fortresses created as crossfire zone, enabling cannon fire to control any naval passage through the narrowest part of the strait. Over time, more castles and batteries were added on both shores, such as Nar Fortress or Çanakkale, Kumkale on the Asian side, Orhane Bastion, and Nisudiye batteries. These forts were positions to provide overlapping fields of fire, and they were periodically upgraded with newer artillery. By the 19th century, as European naval technology advanced, the Ottomans realized their aging forts and muzzle-loading cannons were becoming obsolete. Under the regimes of Sultan Abdülhamid II, significant modernization efforts were undertaken. This included replacing old stone walls with eastern side concrete structures that could better absorb artillery impact, and installing Krupp-manufactured steel breech-loading cannons from Germany, building underground communication depots and shelters to protect crews, and establishing common bunkers and observation points with range-finding equipment. The forts were now organized into a layered defense system with the outer, central, and inner zones of fire. This allowed for grounded resistance against any naval intrusion. fortifications were put under most severe test during the Gallipoli campaign of World War I. The Allied powers, led by Britain and France, aimed to force their way through the Dardanelles, seize Istanbul, and open a supply route to Russia. On March 18, 1915, the Allies launched a full-scale naval assault with battleships and cruisers, confident that modern firepower would silence the Ottoman force. However, they underestimated both the strengths of the Ottoman coast batteries and the effectiveness of the minefields laid in the strait. The combination of land-based artillery, smart mine placement, and mobile howitzers units provides devastating. The naval attack field forcing the Allies to resort to a land invasion. When Allied troops landed on Gallipoli Peninsula, which is on our port site right now, in April 1915, the Ottomans swiftly adapted their coastal defenses to support trench warfare. Forts were used as supply bases, artillery platforms, and medical stations. Coastal batteries shifted fire inland to target landing zones and support Ottoman infantry. Artillery was also mounted on railways and moved as needed to repel advances. Crucially, Mustafa Kemal, later known as Atatürk, emerged a key leader, organizing defense with limited resources. The combination of determined troops, defensive use of terrain, and overlapping fire from fortified positions allowed the Ottomans to hold their ground for 8 grueling months until the Allied evacuation in January 1916. Thousands of wounded or wounded Ottoman preserved as a place of national glory and pride. Marble headstones, royal plaques and Turkish flags mark the resting buildings along the wall. It is a quiet, shaded site that invites reflection, not just on war, but on the endurance of the human spirit and the cost of peace. The cemetery is often visited by school groups, veterans, families, and Turkish citizens, especially on March 18th, the National Humanitarian and Martyrs Day, when thousands gather to remember those who perished in the Dardanelles defense. This site, like so many in this region, reminds us that the landscape we're saving from today, these glades, lakes, and forests, were once filled with tents, trenches, and soil, and now they have become places of remembrance. So as we sail past this part of the Gallipoli Peninsula and all the cemeteries that line the shores of Dardanelles, we can think of the memories flowing through the straight line carved beneath us. Why constant and eternal? Ladies and gentlemen, as we continue our voyage through the legendary Dardanelles Strait, I would invite you to look over the European shore. That's the Gallipoli Peninsula, the most southern and significant located sites of the First World War. And on the other side of the hill, fortunately we can only see behind, but especially as I was Australian and New Zealanders, it is very important historical sites for them and very close distance to us. It is the answer not feeling and the answer memorials. The very places where over a century ago, young soldiers from Australia and New Zealand, known as the Nazis, landed during the Gallipoli campaign in 1915. This was part of the major Allied operation to seize control of the Dardanelles, pushing through the Istanbul and Balkan supply route to Russia. The Nazi troops landed on April 25th, 1915, in rugged cliffs, steep terrain that gave them little chance against the well-entrenched Ottoman forces. Over 11,000 Nazi soldiers died here, among more than 130,000 total casualties from both sides, including Turkish, British, French, and Indian troops. For many Australians and New Zealanders, Gallipoli was their first experience of international conflict, and it deeply shaped both nations' national identities. It's remembered every year on Answer Day on April 25th, when thousands of visitors travel from Turkey to attend the down service at Answer Grove, not far from where we are right now, on the other side of the hills, on our left side, on the European side. As we pass, you may be able to spot some of the major memorials in the hills beyond the shoreline, including the Long Line Cemetery, John Bear's Memorial, and the Turkish 57th Infantry Regiment Memorial, which honors the Ottoman soldiers who contradied on that very first day. The love between Turkey, Australia, and New Zealand has become something truly remarkable. Despite the tragedy, Gallipoli is now a place of shared remembrance and reconciliation. One of the most touching symbols of this connection is a message attributed to Campus Club Island their sons from faraway countries. Wipe away your tears. Your sons are now alive in the blossom of and are at peace. Today, Gallipoli is not just a bufferfield, it's a vast national park, dotted with 31 Commonwealth War memorials, cemeteries, and several Turkish and international borders, all carefully preserved and protected. Over 40,000 visitors attend the Anzac Day services annually, many of them making the long journey from the southern hemisphere to honor their ancestors. As we continue along the strait, take a moment to reflect on the bravery, sacrifice, and lasting legacy of those who fought there, and how this place, the conflict, has become a symbol of peace and unity across continents. As we are sailing through the Dardanelles Strait, let me give you a few interesting facts about geography, nature, the timeline of power and conflicts, a little bit about the modern economy, and other interesting things. The Dardanelles is a narrow 61-kilometer long, about 38-mile strait that separates Europe from Asia, and more specifically the Gallipoli Peninsula from Anatolia. It is the narrowest point near Çanakkale. It's just 1.2 kilometers wide, 0.75 miles, and we're going to approach it very soon. Its name comes from the ancient city of Dardanelles, where the ancient Greeks called it Hellespont, the Sea of Heaven, reflecting a mythological tale. The waters here connect the Aegean Sea to the Sea of Marmara, and ultimately the Black Sea with the Bosphorus. The strait is not just historically important, it's also biologically rich. It supports diverse marine life, including dolphins, tuna, anchovies, and seals, and acts as a migratory corridor for fish. Moving between seas, seabirds, old groves, pine forests, and coastal cliff lines, the shores making this one of the most scenic maritime routes in Turkey. The Dardanelles has been the gateway to Western currently known as Istanbul, and fiercely connected zone for over 3,000 years. In 1200 BCE, it was mentioned in Homer's Iliad, near the site of ancient Troy, located just inland from here. In 480 just checked with the captain what would be the distance between the tallest point of the ship and the bridge, and he said that it's going to be 7 meters, which is 22 feet. So get your cameras ready. Approximately after 6 p.m. we are going to go under this suspension bridge. As you sail through the Dardanelles today, remember, these waters have been heroes, conquests, poems, and dreams. They've carried Persian armies, Greeks, hoplites, Ottoman ships, light destroyers, and now you're not just passing through the strait, you're passing through the pages of history. Surrounded by natural beauty, maritime significance, and stories that echoes from old age to modern. You are enjoying the view from your staterooms on the starboard side. You're watching the Asian side of Turkey, and particularly we are looking at Anatolia region that is famously known as a popular tourist destination. So right now on our tool of direction, you can see the Çanakkale Park. That is most popular family destination here. Aqualand is the largest water park in the North Aegean region, offering fun and refreshment under the summer sun. It's located just 10 minutes from Çanakkale city center, and we already connected close to Kepez and Nada town, which is in Çanakkale area. The aqua park opened during the summer season, typically from June through September. It welcomes people daily from 10 to 6 p.m. and the park features a wide variety of water slides and shallow pools for young children. There are also the lazy river, wave pool, and kids water playground. Plenty of restaurants, snack bars, and outside food and drinks. And let me tell you a few words about the city that is going to be on our starboard side very soon. It is called Kepez. One of the fastest growing suburbs of Çanakkale province. It is a modern coastal settlement located about 5 kilometers south of Çanakkale city center. It is transformed in recent decades from a quiet village into a bustling residential and recreational hub, home to around 35,000 residents. Its strategic position along the strait has helped it become a preferred living area for communities, retirees, and summer residents alike. The stretch of coast you see is known for its seafront promenade, public parks, and clean beaches that attract locals and domestic tourists during the warmer month. The Kepez Marina, visible from the ship on clear days, serves small yachts and fishing boats, as is part of the town's growing focus on maritime tourism. Economically, Kepez benefits from its connection to Çanakkale's university, health sector, and transport routes, but it's also developing its own identity. In recent years, new cafes, hotels, shopping centers, and cultural centers have popped up along the shoreline. The town is also known for its sunsets, often described as some of the most stunning along the Dardanelles. The color reflected on the narrow sea channel between Europe and Asia create an almost magical atmosphere. Though it doesn't carry the ancient weight of Troy or Gallipoli capacity, is a great example of the new face of Turkey Aegean region. Modern, peaceful community, oriented and proudly connected to its new addition inaugurated in the early 21st century, but it has become a spiritual and architectural centerpiece of the local community. Its name, 18 Mart, commemorates 18th of March, a deeply significant date in Turkish history, making the Ottoman naval victory during the Battle of Çanakkale over Italy in 1915. It is also recognized nationally as Çanakkale Victory and Martyrs Day. The second part of the name, Hatimiana, pays tribute to the local female benefactor and gesture, not uncommon in Turkey, where mosques are often named in honor of the individuals or families who founded their construction. The word Ulu Kamil means grand mosque, reflecting both its size and importance to the town of Kepez. Architecturally, the mosque blends Ottoman and modern design, with a spacious prayer hall, tall minarets, and a beautiful crafted dome. It serves not only a place of daily worship, but also hosts religious festivals, community gatherings, and educational programs. During Ramadan, it becomes a vibrant center of activity, with dinners and night prayers drawing hundreds of worshippers. For visitors sailing by, the mosque symbolizes the faith and remembrance, a place that honors the past while serving the present. Ladies and gentlemen, as we are sailing northward, we are now approaching the beautiful historical rich city of Çanakkale, visible on the Asian shore to the right. Çanakkale is a city of about 550,000 people in its province, with around 150,000 residents in the urban center. Though small in size compared to Istanbul or Izmir, Çanakkale is known for its strategic location, historical importance, and vibrant students' culture thanks to Çanakkale University. Economically, Çanakkale is supported by agriculture, tourism, and fishing, with olive oil, tomatoes, and wine among the region's key products. The nearby plains of Biga are fertile and well irrigated, and the town also has a growing reputation for organic farming and agro-tourism. In recent years, wind and solar energy projects have become a modern addition to the local economy. Now, historically speaking, this region is a treasure chest. Just inland from the coast lies the legendary city of Troy, where, according to Homer, the Greeks fought a 10-year war to rescue Helen. In fact, the famous Trojan horse from 2004 Hollywood film Troy is now on display along the Çanakkale waterfront, and it's become one of the city's most photographed landmarks. During the First World War, Çanakkale found itself at the center of the Gallipoli campaign, a pivotal battle in 1915 when Ottoman's forces heroically resisted Allied attempts to force their way through the strait. The campaign lasted over 8 months and left more than 50,000 casualties, who would later become the founder of the Republic of Turkey. You may also notice the Grand Çanakkale Martyrs Memorial standing tall in the southern tip of the Italy Peninsula that we passed by earlier this afternoon. And from the back it should still be visible across the water. It's one of the most powerful symbols of national memory in Turkey, and it commemorates the sacrifice of thousands who defended their homeland. And there is a fun fact: the Çanakkale comes from Çanak, meaning pot or bowl in Turkish, a reference to the town's historical pottery and ceramic production. You can still find handmade ceramics in the local markets and date back to tradition to the Ottoman and even Byzantine eras. Modern Çanakkale is a blend of history and daily life. The harbor is filled with ferries and fishing boats, and the promenade is lined up with the cafes and tea houses where locals sip chai and enjoy the breeze. It's also the launching point for ferry crossing the Isibat and the Gallipoli battlefields, as well as for all the trips down to the beautiful Boscada and Josada Islands. So as we pass through these storied waters, take in the views, the history and atmosphere of the sea. You remember Captain's announcement earlier, this at the noontime, and he mentioned the Trojan horse, which was left here, donated to the city by Hollywood filmmakers. You can see it right now on 3 o'clock direction on our starboard side, right where the ferry station is. And if you looking at Çanakkale on your right side, you can also notice the clock tower at Old Town. A little further on, the elegant Çanakkale clock tower, built in 1897. It marked the start of the city's historic quarter, where cobble streets, Ottoman-era houses, and quiet shops preserve the atmosphere of a slower, simpler time. It is a great spot for a walking tour if you ever return to explore the city by then. And in general, it is considered as the city of 2 continents. Çanakkale is unique in that it spans most of Asia and Europe, with ferries constantly crossing the narrowest point on the strait. It is home to around 550,000 residents, a large university, military bases, and a youthful energy that comes from people of the historic city and a forward-looking cultural center. The city thrives on education, tourism, agriculture, and olive oil production, and the launching point for excursions to Troy, Assos, and Gallipoli battlefields. Ladies and gentlemen, as we passed through the narrowest point just now, that was less than a mile, and now we are able to see Gallipoli Peninsula Historical National Park on our left side or toward the side. This peninsula, the Gallipoli Peninsula, serene and green today, was once the site of the most devastating military campaigns of the First World War Gallipoli campaign, also known in Turkey as Çanakkale Savaşı. And the light forces, primarily from Britain, France, Australia, and New Zealand, landed on Peninsula. And that followed with the 8 months of brutal trench warfare, with assault, counterattacks, and strategic loss of life. Over 130,000 soldiers perished, including around 80,000 Ottomans and 44,000 Allied troops, and over 300,000 were wounded. The land you see now with the gentle hill and pine trees was once scared by shellfire and soft breeze. unimaginable suffering. The Gallipoli Peninsula is now preserved as a national park and open-air memorial, visited by people from all over the world. Among the most significant sites within the parks are the Çanakkale Martyrs Memorial, a towering monument dedicated to all Ottoman soldiers who fought during the war that we saw on the entrance to Dardanelles. The Anzac Cove, where troops from the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps landed, and where annual Anzac Day commemorations are held every April 25th. That is on the Aegean side of the Gallipoli. And dozens of Allied and Turkish cemeteries, maintained with dignity and care, scattered across the landscape, among them the Long Pine, Junkie Bear, and Beach Cemetery, where the famous Australian poet, soldier John Simpson Kirkpatrick is buried. These memorials stand now as clarifications of war, but have prominence the members of peace. The area was declared a National Historical Park in 1973 and spans over 33,000 hectares. It's not just a battlefield, it's also a place for natural beauty, with coastal cliffs, wildflowers, pine forests, and bird songs offering a quiet contrast to the weight of its past. Many visitors walk the memorial trails that connects the battlefields, read soldiers' letters etched in stone, and reflect by the sea where landing boats once crashed ashore. For Turkey, Gallipoli marked the moment the Ottoman defense became a defining chapter in national pride and the rise of Atatürk, who will go to found the modern Turkish Republic. For Australia and New Zealand, it represents a moment of national birth, a tragic yet traditional foundational event in the shaping of identity, remembered solemnly each year on Anzac Day. The inscription you'll find on the memorial, written by Atatürk itself, sums up the spirit of this place. And soon on our left side, you will be able to see the Bigali Castle on the Asian side or our port side. Nested among the low hills and greenery, you can spot the silhouette of Bigali Castle, a less known but historically rich Ottoman fortress overlooking the narrowest part of the strait. Bigali Castle, or Bigali Kalesi in Turkish, was part of a coordinated chain of fortifications built by the Ottoman Empire in the late 18th century during the reign of Sultan Selim III. At that time, the Ottomans were working to reinforce their coastal defenses in response to rising threats from European naval powers. The Dardanelles was and still a strategic checkpoint between the Aegean Sea and the Sea of Marmara, controlling access to Istanbul and Ottoman capital. Along with the twin fortresses like Kilitbahir Castle and Sidulbahir on the opposite shore, Bigali Castle formed a defensive triangle equipped with cannons, barracks, and lookout posts. These forts could deliver crossfire upon any hostile fleet attempting to pass through the strait, a tactic famously employed during the Gallipoli campaign of the World War I in 1915, when Ottoman artillery resisted a massive Allied naval assault. Through Bigali Castle didn't see the same direct action as some of the larger forts. Its location was critical to the Ottoman command network. During World War I, the area around Bigali also served as a military headquarters, and just a few kilometers inland lies the village of Bigali, Köyü, where Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, then a young Ottoman commander, set up his base during the Gallipoli campaign. Today, Bigali Castle stands as a quiet sentinel of Turkish history. Let me give you some information about it. This inland sea serves as a vital connection between the Aegean Sea to the south and the Black Sea on the north via the Dardanelles Strait, which will be approached soon near Istanbul. So you will be sailing into a body of water that has shaped empires, economies, and ecosystems for over 3 millennia. The Sea of Marmara stretches roughly 280 kilometers or 174 miles east to west and 80 kilometers or 50 miles north to south. It is a sea within a sea, entirely enclosed by Turkey, forming a natural divide between Europe and Asia. Its average depth is about 500 meters or 1,640 feet, with the deepest spot reaching over 1,370 meters or 4,495 feet near the Dardanelles Basin. The sea is dotted with beautiful islands, the most famous being Princess Island near Istanbul and Marmara Island, which gives the sea its name. While marble, the name comes from Marmara Island, once known for its fine white marble prized in ancient Roman and Byzantine architecture, including in Hagia Sophia and countless imperial buildings. The Sea of Marmara has been a lifeline of empires. The Byzantines, Ottomans, and countless maritime powers used this waterway to transport goods, troops, and ideas between countries. The port cities that dot its coast, Istanbul, Tekirdağ, Edirne, Yalova, flourished thanks to the strategic highway. One of history's most famous naval passages happened here in 1915 during the First World War. Gallipoli campaign. Culturally, the sea has inspired poetry, music, and storytelling for centuries, from Ottoman maritime songs to the writings of Turkish novelist Said Faik Abizanik, who lived on Burgaz Island. The Marmara is a muse as much as a medium. Despite being relatively small, the Sea of Marmara boasts diverse maritime life, including anchovies, sea bass, bonito, mackerel, and even occasional dolphin sightseeing. It's an essential migratory route for fish spices within the Black Sea, and especially in spring and autumn. However, it faces environmental changes. In 2021, the sea made headlines due to the cease of marine usage.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I'm fine going to the same place. It's different food every
pollution
night.
and climate change.
Fine by me.
Efforts have intensified to improve water quality and regulate waste discharge. Turkey is investing in marine conservation to protect this critical ecosystem. Historically, the Sea of Marmara was a bustling center for trade, salt mining, marble extraction and fishing. Ancient poets like Sisyphus and Dardanelles Strait, when they were vital hubs on Roman trade routes. Today, it's a mix of the old and new: commercial shipping, ferries, young tourism, and aquaculture now define the economy. The Marmara region is one of Turkey's most industrialized zones, home to major cities and ports. However, traditional fishing communities still thrive along its shores.
I say change my clothes.
The Marmara is only one
Fix my hair.
sea entirely within a single country, Turkey. The Sea of Marmara has no tides but experiences strong currents caused by the difference in salinity between the Black Sea and Aegean Sea. You can cross the entire sea by ferry in just a few hours, a favorite trip for both locals and visitors. And ancient mariners feared its sudden storms, calling it the Sea of Winds.
We're going to do Thor on this trip if we go to London.
It's about
You
about
probably
2
noticed
hours.
Yeah.
that if you look at the ridge lines along the both shores, particularly the elevated hills, the north and east, if the line is right and the air is clear, you may catch a glimpse of white wind turbines slowly turning in the breeze. These elegant towers are part of Turkey's fast-growing wind energy network, and they represent the country's push towards the clean, renewable power. The geography of this region, with strong sea breezes, high hills, and open coastal plains, make it an ideal location for wind farms. The Dardanelles Strait acts like a natural wind tunnel, funneling air between the Aegean and inland Anatolia and providing nearly constant movement of air, a dream scenario for wind energy engineers. Turkey ranks among the top wind energy producers in Europe outside the EU. As of 2024, over 11% of Turkey's electricity comes from wind power, and the figure continues to grow. Most wind farms are located in western Turkey, particularly along the Aegean and Marmara coast, where winds are the strongest. The province, let's say like Izmir, are leading contributors. Nearby Kanakkale province alone generates hundreds of megawatts of clean energy from wind. Wind farms such as Kopchak or Bahçeli wind farms, visible inland next to Kepez and Gelibolu. Probably one of them you can see right now on 1 o'clock direction. Also on the entrance to the Dardanelles, you saw a few wind farms there as well. And some of them are fairly new and they're developing more and more. These turbines typically range from 80 to 120 meters in height, with blades as long as 60 meters, turning slightly and generating enough energy to power tens of thousands of homes per site. These wind farms not only reduce carbon emission, but also provide jobs and economic growth in rural communities. Local residents often speak proudly of their role in powering Turkey with the wind. And don't worry, the turbines are carefully placed to avoid interrupting migratory birds' routes as a key concern for this biodiverse region. But still, before that, let me tell you a few fun facts across 2 continents. proximity to the country what we are passing through, the Turkey. Did you know that Turkey is one of the few countries in the world that spans two continents? Only 3% of its land lies in Europe, and 97% in Asia, that is known as Anatolia. Turkey is surrounded by 4 different seas: the Aegean, Mediterranean, the Black Sea, and Sea of Marmara, which we're gonna be very soon. It is home to nearly 10,000 plant species, 400 lakes, and the world's famous geological wonder of Cappadocia, where hot air balloons rise over surreal landscapes. Turkey has more archaeological sites than almost any country on earth. From Troy, just a short drive inland from here, to Ephesus, Göbekli Tepe, the world's oldest temple, and Istanbul's Hagia Sophia. The city of Istanbul is the only city in the world that straddles 2 continents, and it was once the capital of 3 great empires: Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman. And you probably heard of Santa Claus. Yes, he was Turkish. The real Saint Nicholas was born in Patara, along Turkey's Mediterranean coast. Turkey is where coffee culture began. Turkish coffee is UNESCO listed, strong, and often served with the piece of Turkish delight. The eagle eye charm, or göz, is one of the Turkey's most recognizable symbols. You'll see it hanging on doors, mirrors, and even baby strollers, said to ward off bad luck. Traditional Turkish music includes folk tunes played on the baklava and haunting calls to prayer that echo from more than 80,000 mosques across the country. Turkey's economy is one of the largest in the region, powered by textiles, tourism, agriculture, manufacturing, and a growing tech and defense industry. It is the 7th largest producer of food in the world, famous for hazelnuts, figs, apricots, and olives, and much of the olive oil consumed in Europe is grown right here in Kanakkale province and surrounding areas. Turkey is also a leading destination for medical tourism, attracting people from all across the globe for cosmetic surgery, dentistry, and thermal spas. And before we get to Çanakkale 1915 bridge, let me tell you a few main facts about it. Çanakkale 1915 bridge was opened on March 18 in 2022. This magnificent structure connects the town of Lapseki on the Asian side and Südnice on the European side of the Dardanelles. It spans a stunning 2,000 meters, a number carefully chosen to symbolize the year 2023, marking the centenary of the Republic of Turkey. The project was joint effort by Turkish and South Korean firm and cost approximately 2.5 million euros, which is around 2.8 million US dollars at the time of construction. But it's more than just a bridge, it's a symbol of Turkey's technological ambition, a testament to the modern infrastructure and a tribute to its historic past. The bridge is named in honor of the Battle of Gallipoli in 1915, a defining moment in Turkish history. March 18 its opening, Çanakkale Victory and Martyrs' Day commemorated the Ottoman naval triumph against Allied forces in the First World War. This is why you'll see the bridge massive red tower standing 318 meters tall, another symbolic figure representing March 18. Before this bridge, crossing the Dardanelles meant a ferry ride, sometimes long, especially in summer, but now thanks to the marvel, the crossing takes just 6 minutes by car, linking Europe and Asia by road for the first time at this point in the strait. The project was a joint effort by a Turkish and some Greek firm and took a few years to build. From the water, the bridge is incredibly silent, sleek, towering, and graceful yet powerful. At night, it's lit up beautifully, casting a reflection across the strait, offering an entirely different spectacle. So if you want to catch it up early in the morning, on the way back after Istanbul, approximately at in between 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning, that is just my guess, we will be able to go under this bridge again. So if you're an early bird and a photographer, it makes sense to wake up earlier. And this is not just a transportation link, it is a statement. It reminds the world that this narrow strait, once crossed by the warships and ancient fleets, is now united by innovation and peace. Advise you to be ready with your cameras on the open decks, since we are going to go under the Çanakkale 1915 bridge. The oil tanker in front of us is already going under, and I would suggest you to be on the top decks in 5 minutes time and ready for your nice selfies and Instagrammable portraits in March 18. So now it takes approximately 6 minutes by car, linking Europe and Asia by road, which helps local economy. Otherwise, they had to take a ferry on this area. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, get with your to the bridge, and right after we'll go under the bridge, it will be on your left side. It sits on the tip of the Gallipoli Peninsula, a region that has been crossroads of civilizations for over 3,000 years, from the ancient Greeks and Persians to Byzantines and Ottomans. The name Gallipoli comes from the Greek Kallipolis, meaning beautiful city, and indeed, its natural beauty still shines today. Pine-covered hills, rocky cliffs, and turquoise waters that have been both peace and conflict over millennia. But what makes Gallipoli truly famous is the role in the First World War during the Gallipoli campaign in 1915. Over 130,000 men died in a campaign that lasted just 8 months. Yet Gallipoli's military importance long predates the modern era. The Ottoman Empire fortified the Dardanelles heavily in the 15th century, building castles and gun emplacements to control the naval traffic. You can still see remnants of some of these historic fortifications just to the south of town. In peacetime, Gallipoli thrives on a mix of fishing, agriculture, olive oil production, and tourism. The Aegean climate is ideal for vineyards and olive groves, and the region produces some excellent local wines and artisan foods. The town is also known for its strong naval heritage, and many locals trace their roots back to sailors and shipbuilders who served the Ottoman fleet. Culturally, Gelibolu blends Balkan, Turkish and Anatolian influences shaped by centuries of migrations and trade. You'll find charming Ottoman-era houses, quiet harbors, bustling weekly markets and seaside promenade where locals gather for evening tea. Gelibolu Peninsula was once considered as possible crossing point of a bridge between Europe and Asia. Through a Kanakalei 1950 bridge was eventually built for the south. Gelibolu remains a symbolic gateway between two continents. And now, from the open decks, you already can see both sides of the Çanakkale 1950 bridge. So finally get your cameras ready. In a few minutes, we will be under the bridge.
We're aiming for the flag.
You sure he got this lined up right?
I'm hoping so. Because that's really, really low. And we're kind of high. The clearance is going to be really, really, really low. This much clearance. I'll wait till we get I mean, if the bridge is under us, we have a fucking problem.
You know what I mean?
So the guys in the cars put the feet down a little bit, just because they don't want to be in the way. Put the centre when the ship's coming through.
Hey, I thought it was supposed to go up.
Like, hold on. Guys.
I was gonna say I'd love to borrow a vehicle and test that theory.
If you go to London, there's a Dartford Bridge. It's a lot higher than this, but it goes up like probably maybe stretches too far. You've got a tunnel as well, but it goes up to get over it. You're on a car. It's frightening.
Okay, so we're under the bridge right now, and let's see what our clearance is going to be like. Is it going to take a moment? So just stick with
Okay,
me.
finally, ladies and gentlemen, the highlight of tonight, the Çanakkale 1950 bridge is right upon us.
Good job, Captain. Thank you for not taking us out. And we made it, y'all. Yeah, pretty much.
Let me pay more attention to Gallipoli places of interest, what we can see on our port side, which is approximately right now on 11 o'clock direction. Gallipoli has been Byzantines, Venetian, Genoese, Ottomans and British forces and the coastline before evolved stories of sieges, naval battles and spiritual encounters. In fact, the very name Gallipoli comes from the Greek Kallipolis, that means beautiful city. And now 30,000 residents live in there. On the south of the city, you see Gallipoli Fortress, or Gallipoli Kalesi. Just near the harbor, you will see the remains of Gallipoli Castle built by the Byzantines and later expanded by the Ottomans. It stood guard over the vital sea lane and served as part of the coastal defense system of the strait for centuries. Bayraki Baba Top and Lookout Point, you can see it on a small hill above the town.
Just in the nick of time for my phone to say you're out
And
of
it is
space.
a legendary Ottoman stand bearer. Pilgrims and locals visit the site for blessings and reflections, while tourists come for the incredible panoramic view of the Dardanelles. In the 17th century, the Marmari Lodge was once a major spiritual center of Sufism. Carefully restored, it is now served as a museum of mysticism and music, honoring the teaching of Rumi and the art of the wielding the dervishes. It's one of the oldest of its kind in Turkey. A coastal artillery battle built during the Ottoman period and uses during the Gallipoli campaign in 1915 should be also visible, and if you have your binoculars ready, you will see it on the port side. It's a well-preserved reminder of the region's role in protecting the strait, and many of its original cannons still point out towards the sea, right in our direction. The town's cozy marina, cafes and restaurants lying in a lively seaside promenade. Local fishermen still head out in the mornings, and in the summer months, Gallipoli becomes a favorite gateway and domestic tourists seeking history, peace and fresh seafood. And also you can see the open-air mosque that is dating back to the 15th century. This unique open-air mosque was built for soldiers who couldn't fit inside the small mosque during the military campaigns. It's one of the last remaining examples in Turkey and symbolizes the area's military religious heritage. So, ladies and gentlemen, it was a big pleasure to be with you in these few hours, going through the historical side of Dardanelles Strait. I hope you will visit my other docks on the ship. I will do one in Mykonos morning. So see you around the ship and enjoy your wonderful evening.
Mykonos is good.
Thank you very much. This was
Mykonos.
Benny, your destination expert.
Have you been? We have. It's really nice. Yeah.